I think I managed to avoid any and all setup weirdness this time. So going into this, I suppose that I should say what my guess is as or my thoughts are as to again who did the murder, how they did it, and what reasoning we're going to go through to figure out who did it and how they did it. And there is a fourth question that's somewhat of a lesser importance to me, but some people care about it, and that is why they did it. The reason why it's somewhat less important to me is it's hard to guess, but that might make it seem more important, because if you could guess it, it's more impressive. Something that tends to come out of nowhere a lot of the time. And kind of as I said, because of the nature of Ace Attorney, sometimes at this point in the investigation, this is extremely difficult to guess at, if maybe impossible, because oftentimes in Ace Attorney, the whoever did it is not introduced yet. So you wouldn't have a clue. I mean, you'd have a clue. What I'm trying to say is, your space for which you have to guess at is like a potential character, which is a very broad space. Sorry, I didn't say that right. So, I originally thought that it was Herlock Sholmes. That is when Herlock Sholmes was first introduced. The problem is that it turns out that Herlock Sholmes is a gameplay mechanic. So, we would expect him to be a recurring character throughout the cases. So it's extremely unlikely that he did it. Such that he's basically not on the list anymore of potential candidates. Just to be complete, Susato is seemingly taking the role of assistant. Which means that Susato... I'm going to press any key just to get the music to be softer here. Sure. She is turning into judicial assistant, so that would be somebody like Maya, for example. And the judicial assistant is often accused of murder, but is rarely ever the person to have done it. And when I say rarely ever, I mean I don't know the story of Dual Destinies, the fifth game. I mean, well, whatever. I won't say it. It's like, sometimes it's like you talk your way into an accidental spoiler and you're like, oops. That's what happened there. Great. But I kind of have to say that because I need to explain why I think the way I do, and that kind of has prerequisites of what games I know what happened in them. So, that makes her extremely unlikely to be the person who does it as well. The main character is the attorney. So, sometimes the attorney is accused of the murder. It's kind of a rare event. It kind of might actually happen like in the middle of a trial that happens. I only really know of one specific example. Well, I know of two. I know of three instances of the attorney himself being accused of the murder. One is in this. First one is the first case of this game. The second is the second case of this game. It's actually really weird that they did it twice in a row at the beginning of this game when it's something that's very rare. There's a third case I know of this. And it was not. It was introduced like in the middle of the trial. It was kind of like as like a last ditch effort by the person to which you're performing the turnabout. Now, people who become attorneys later have been accused of murder in their pasts. That's happened, but not like while they were doing the case and while you were playing as them. So yeah, it's very unlikely that Ryanosuke is the one who did it. It's just because he's the attorney and he has to keep going through future episodes of this series. And we can play from his perspective, and he insists he didn't do it. So now that leaves, okay, what about the inspector? Well, I presume the inspector is going to be like Gumshoe. And so he's going to be this recurring character. And so he, because the culprits tend to not reoccur from case to case, they might reoccur across many cases, but not from case to case. It's extremely unlikely that he did it. Keep going. Um, Russian mook. So there's the nameless Russian guy who's guarding the room. Well, because he's nameless, that makes it extremely unlikely that he did it. Biff Stroganoff. Well, that's a tough one. Try to like it's extremely unlikely that he's the person who did it too, but it's kind of hard to explain because he is a named character. It's just like he's kind of a character like Old Bag or just kind of like the uh, the trading card collecting kid, right? In Ace Attorney 1, where he doesn't really seem like he's had enough attention to him or lack of attention to him to really be like the culprit. He doesn't have the right amount of attention. Like he seems to be being used as a mook essentially. Um, so it doesn't feel like somebody who would be the person who did it. Um, but it's kind of difficult to articulate that idea, right? Because he is a named character that is kind of introduced there briefly, which kind of makes him suspicious in ways. But he doesn't have the feeling that you would get from somebody who who was the person who did it. Next, we have the Russian ballerina, which reminds me of how I should be practicing my Stravinsky. But anyway, we have the woman who dances herself to death. Actually, it's not the Ballet Russe, it's Novovich, and they play all around the world, not just in France. But whatever, I'm stretching things. Wait, there's still an entry for this person? Oh, well, that's weird. I guess we're gonna use that in the trials somehow. Okay. Um, yeah, the culprit. Yeah, he's even in the court record. Um, there is a lot of attention given to Pavlova, um, as if she is a very so she is definitely going to appear as a witness in the trial, and as such, she's definitely going to escape. I mean, definitely going to be caught escaping Russia because she's going to have to show up in the courtroom and testify, and we will have to cross-examine her, extremely likely. So she's going to be there to be turned about on. And she has a snake in her luggage that did crawl over to um, Kazuma's room the night he died. Now, Kazuma seems to have no visible wounds on him, given a snake might be very small, and so the crew might not, these Russian guys may not have noticed yet. Um, so, death by snake bite by um, Nikolina Pavlova's snake is theoretically possible. The problem with that is you have to turn about onto the snake, and the snake has to break down, and you have to like that's not something Ace Attorney generally would do. Now you could accuse Pavlova of manslaughter or something by taking a dangerous animal onto this populated ship and letting it loose. But that's not really what Ace Attorney is about either. Um, so now, did Pavlova um, killing Asogi on purpose? This could be possible if Asogi or Kazuma knew about Pavlova's identity or something, and she wanted to kill him to cover it up. Um, not. We don't really have any evidence of that yet. Pavlova came onto the ship at around the same time that Kazuma died, and she did so by coming down out of the sky. You know, she just kind of like parachute dropped onto the ship. When she arrived on the ship, she introduced herself to the ship's captain and crew as Nikolina Pavlova. She only donned the disguise of Roylott to the Japanese people and Herlock Sholmes. So, she didn't want the Japanese to figure out who she was. Perhaps because they knew that a dancer had sneaking out of Russia. However, the ship's captain and crew may not have known about the story. Right? They hadn't known that some dancer had escaped, and so they didn't have the know-how to identify her as said escaped dancer. Right. Whereas these Japanese people would have. Okay. The way the narrative goes, Pavlova would be the only character introduced that really makes sense that she'd be the one who did it. But again, because of the feel of it, it seems to me kind of unlikely that she did it. She doesn't feel like somebody who they're going to have be the actual murderer. So my guess at this point is the person who did it has not yet been introduced. How they did it, they somehow get how they did. That's another question. So there is a game where somewhere in that game a character lists out the types of locked room mystery solutions. One of them is called the locked room is created before the murder. The other is called the locked room is created after the murder. The third is the room is not really locked, and the fourth one is that the murderer is still in the room when the body is discovered and kind of blends into there's so enough people coming in to investigate that they kind of blend in. So, and the fourth type is kind of what is kind of the same as what the ship's crew are thinking of, because he's hiding away inside the room, which is kind of similar. Um, there's actually a fourth kind, and that is suicide. So, did Kazuma commit suicide? Well, Kazuma did have some weird mood things going on. He didn't want to go to Britain, but they managed to talk him into it. Then he insisted that Ryanosuke come along with him. And he wouldn't tell Ryanosuke why. So one is he might have felt like he was in danger. And certainly the government thought he would be in danger because they hired the inspector to watch him undercover, so there was some element of that. There was some murmurings by some people that somebody would try to kill Kazuma. But that's not super clear that Kazuma was suicidal. I mean, what would that have to do with him bringing Ryanosuke on board? So, there wasn't big enough signs that really had that mentality. So, next is, locked room was created before the murder. What this means is they locked the room up, and then they had a mechanism to kill him without going into the room. So that would be like they locked the room up, and then they managed to throw in like poison gas into the room from Pavlova's cabin, like over the vent. Well, they'd have to get into Pavlova's cabin to do this, or be Pavlova. And the gas would have not had to have killed Ryanosuke, or given him permanent brain damage so that he wouldn't have been able to do this case. You can explain it that he was hiding in the wardrobe, and the gas didn't make it into the wardrobe. But wardrobes aren't usually that airtight, so it's kind of a stretch. But that's like locked room was created before the murder means is locked room is created, or the person who was murdered just happened to lock the room, and then the killer killed them from outside using some sort of mechanism that didn't require unlocking the room. The next locked room is created after the murder. Is the person the perpetrator kills them in a way that would presumably require the room to be unlocked, then has some trick to leave the room, then has some trick to lock the room behind them in a way that doesn't look like you could lock the room behind them. In other words, it's basically the idea that the type of lock being used could not have been done from the outside is wrong. There is a way that it could have been locked from the outside. It's just that the characters haven't figured it out yet. It's kind of a lame solution, honestly. Um, and let's see what's going on here. Not really a locked room, yeah. So, not really a locked room means that the the perpetrator kills the victim in a way that presumably they would have to be inside the room. And then they lock the room from the inside, but then they have a way of escaping. There's like a secret passage out. It means the room wasn't really locked. There's a way in and out, it's just you haven't discovered it yet. Again, that's kind of a lame one. Um, Usually, if you want to do something, the ones that are the most not lame are locked room is created before the murder. But anyway, that's the locked room ways of doing things. Now, we haven't discovered a secret passage in or out yet. We haven't discovered a mechanism to lock the deadbolt from outside yet. The only thing we've discovered, so we don't. The person was in there the whole time because we didn't observe the breaking into the room. Um, we don't really have a lot of ideas about that, but that would lead to one of the Russian crewmen being it. Um, and locked room before the murder, which is usually the more interesting thing. The murder would have been done through the vent from Pavlova's cabin, which means that Pavlova would be really suspicious. Okay, finally continuing. I wish we hadn't been thrown out like that. I wish we'd managed to find some clue as to what that speckled band might be. We didn't manage to investigate at all. Susato's disappointment face. With her face with extremely perfect proportions. And I imagine they won't be able to for a while longer. We'll never get past that sailor guarding the door. When your arm hair is so coarse that it looks like you've been cutting yourself. He's clearly glaring at us as if to say, don't even think about it. Oh, wait a minute. What is it? Well, what happened to our great detective friend? Where did he go? Oh yes, he completely disappeared. When did you do that? He slipped away as quietly as the wind, but not before ensuring these were securely back on my wrists. So I already examined this room, but I'm going to do it again just in case something has changed. Okay, so this is the same as before. It's checked off. But this door has changed. First class cabin number 1. Yes, that's our cabin. Not our cabin, it's Kazuma-sama's. Sorry? Your accommodation is confined to the wardrobe inside the cabin. You know how to make a stowaway feel small, don't you? As small as the wardrobe I've been calling home. Well, that would make you big. Anyway, I wonder if Inspector Hosonaga has managed to uncover any new clues. Yes, we should probably find him and ask. The bell's the same as before. Same as before. This is something new here. That door leads to second-class area. It's locked. I can't open it. No, well, that stands to reason. No one wants to let the murderer escape. Gosh, she gave me a very stern look when she said that. Did my system audio just go boom boom boom? Fooey on that. Okay. I finished moving a file from one computer to the other, and so it gave me a notification. Because my system audio is collected all at once between, like, all the potential sources, it could show up in the recording. Okay, let's talk to Biff. Let's examine Biff Stroganoff. I really wish you had a chance to look around in Miss Pavlova's cabin. What? You look like that. Why you look like that? You want something? Maybe you want me to throw you out again, no, definitely not that. Next time I have to throw you out, I show you where lobsters spend winter. Understand? Understand. Maybe I should steer clear of him until he's forgotten my face. I don't think he'll ever forget your face, Naruto-san. Did she just read my mind? Yes. Okay. Next. Whoops. We can't do converse, we can't do present, so I guess we have to do move. It looks like they're still investigating in here. Yes, on that subject, I thought they already figured out who the murderer was in the interview and didn't need to investigate. I wonder if Inspector Hosonaga is unscathed. What do you mean, unscathed? Surely you haven't forgotten, have you, Naruhodo-san? Don't you remember what he said about allowing you out of this cabin to investigate? He was going to talk to the captain about it. He said they'd lay his life on the line. He'd lay his life on the line for you. Oh, yes. But I'm sure he was exaggerating. Let's see what he has to say for himself. He might have some new information for us, you never know. Okay, no converse or present here, so I guess all I can do is examine. Well, that's something I can examine. Let's go start all the way over here. That's the same. Let's do this again. These are the rules of passage for travel aboard the SS Buria. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. So by bringing her pet on board, Miss Pavlova has broken the rules. She called it her friend, didn't she? I mean, they let her board by just dropping in, and without paying a fare. So, I mean, would they really care if she brought a pet too? Yes, although we don't know what form this friend takes as yet. I'm almost certain that whatever it is, it's inside the traveling case in her cabin. A friend. There's more to this than it seems, I think. You, where did you go? Oh, sorry, I just went to the next door cabin to invest. Why? Who gave you permission for this? Well, Seaman Hosunaga did. Why did you, just let them out? That new Japanese, was it? Later, I will roll him into ball and throw him into cold room. He's gone back to guarding the door. I hope Inspector Hosonaga doesn't find himself in too much trouble on our account. He's really gone out of his way to help us, hasn't he? When we get back to Japan, we'll have to take him for a steak at La Carnival. That could be a very long time from now, Naruhodo-san. All the books provided for passengers occupying his cabin neatly arranged on the shelf. They were all over the place when we first looked around, if you remember. Oh yes, and you tied them up, didn't you? You have to look after the ship's property. Unruly behavior in the cabins leads to damage. But it really wasn't me who knocked them over. Well, anyway, I feel much better now that they're neatly lined up. I can't relax when things are untidy. This changed. Did the sort... Okay, this stuff did not change. So it's clear that these letters were written with the ink that was somehow spilt on the floor. And they spell the Russian word for wardrobe. It does seem to be an unambiguous pointer to you, Naruhodo-san, as you were sleeping in there. But to be truly unambiguous, it should have just spelled out my name, don't you think? Well, either way, one fact remains. It's hard to imagine that Kazuma-sama would have written his last words, or word, in Russian. Which begs the question of who did write it. And this is like... It seems to roll out locked room created before the murder, because after the murder somebody had to have written that in Russian. And that person would also would have to have known that somebody was in the wardrobe, which means Rannosuke's cover would have been already blown. Already got the traveling case. Desk. This is where Kazuma spent his final moments writing his diary. 1:23 a.m. I can hear a faint whistling sound. That's a snake hiss. 1:35 a.m. What looks like some sort of speckled band is dangling from the ventilator grill. Looking at his writing here on this page, it's almost impossible to believe that he's gone. Kazuma-sama left us a valuable clue in these words, I'm sure of it. We have to solve this mystery, Naruhodo-san. We will. This ventilator joins to Miss Pavlova's cabin. Yes, that's right. And just a few minutes before he died, Kazuma saw something emerging from it. The speckled band, as he described it. If only Miss Pavlova had been able to shed some light on it, but she seemed as baffled as we are. Yes, I wonder if she's telling us everything, though. I'm not sure. I know most people aboard would say the same about me, but there was something about that woman that didn't sit right with me. Okay, last thing, the inspector. Oh, you're back. Inspector? What happened to you? Your face is... Please don't worry about it. They're just scratches. Made by a bear, maybe? Russia symbology. When I told the captain that I'd given you permission to investigate, he told me he'd pummel me with his fists and then toss me overboard. What? But the pummeling was over in a flash, and he must have decided against throwing me overboard. So it was nothing really. It looks like he wasn't joking when he said he'd lay his life on the line if he had to. Well, thanks for your efforts. Thanks to your efforts, we now know a little about the neighboring cabin. Yes, I understand. Oh. I bumped into a man claiming to be a great detective a little while ago. I think his name's something like Herlock Sholmes. I don't think he was German, though. That explains it. Shall we compare notes then? We can tell you what we've found out. Yes, let's do it. What? Nikolina Pavlova, she's in the cabin next door? Oh, you do not know who she is? Please, what self-respecting ballet fan wouldn't know that graceful angel? I think I upset him there. Well, that tells us the neighboring cabin is unrelated to the case, at least. Oh, how? Because angels don't go around committing crimes, do they? Now I've definitely upset him. Inspector, has your investigation here proved fruitful? If I'm honest, there's very little more I can do. Our duty is to make sure the scene isn't disturbed, ready to hand over to the Hong Kong police. So I'm just keeping watch here, trying not to take my eyes off the job. We've already disturbed it quite a bit, though. We've, already put the books back up straight and taken the body out of it. Oh, I see. Ah, there's one thing. I do have a small piece of new information for you. Oh, what? Yes, do tell us, Inspector, please. What is this new information you have, Inspector? It's this. The Buria's medical officer has finished his examination of the body. I managed to obtain the report. Oh, Kazuma's post-mortem report? Kazuma-sama. So, what was the cause of death? Damage to the cervical vertebrae is what's written in the report. I'm like, how does that happen? That's not a snake bite. If he was constricted around the neck, then you would get damage to the trachea more so than to the vertebrae, because the vertebrae is not... The vertebrae are like the hardest structure. Those would damage, last, if you would be constricted around the neck. You'd have to have been hit in the back of the head. Or hit in the back of the neck. His neck was broken? Yes, it would seem so. This, Vulcan quick death? There was no obvious wounds or other signs of injury. So at first, I think they were considering poison. But it turns out they found no trace of poison in his system at all. Well, you can say that again. Well, what weapon was used then? Nothing has been found as yet, but the fact that there are no signs of a wound suggests that it may have been a blunt object, something that wouldn't leave a mark. Oh, I see. All the body's nerves run through the spine to the brain. A strong enough impact to the neck could induce death. It is a possibility, and no obvious wound would be left. Poor Kazuma. He went out like a light. I have a second copy of the report. If it might be useful, you are welcome to have it. And we didn't have typewriters or copy machines at the time of the time in which the story is set, so somebody had to write it twice. Really? Are you sure? Yes, it's fine. I trust you. After all, if I didn't trust you, I'd never have agreed to you leaving this cabin in the first place, would I? I don't know why that matters. Is he gonna kill somebody? It's the thing is, if they didn't want to disturb the crime scene, having a person in the crime scene is not... It's not what you would do if you had that agenda. It just... Anyway. The post-mortem report has been entered into the court record. Oh, Mr. Sholmes was here, was he? Yes, he seemed to be enjoying himself a little too much as he crept about on the floor investigating. But then he suddenly left. I suppose he must have become bored. Did he say anything at all? Actually, now that you mentioned it, yes. Just one thing, but he practically shouted it. It's shoe polish, was all he said. Shoe polish? I wonder what he meant. It was when he was over there, by the piece of broken glass, do you see? Ah, perhaps he was talking about this brick-colored mark, do you think? Ah, yes, that must be it. But how could Mr. Sholmes know that it's shoe polish? That leaves me cold, I'm afraid. I have no idea. What is it, Susato-san? Well, Kazuma-sama was wearing leather shoes with a very dark tan hue. Dark tan, a sort of dark brownish red then. Yes, a little like the color of red wine, but darker. I often repaired them for him. Oh, does that mean that this mark was made by the polish on Kazuma's shoes as they scuffed on the floor? The mark on the floor has been entered into the court record. That's really all I can tell you at this stage. I should return to my post. My fellow crewmen's eyes are boring into the back of my head. Yes, that might be for the best. Thank you. Ahem. Poor Inspector, you look exhausted. Oh, no. Well, I feel terrible that I failed to protect Asogi-san. He was my responsibility. Of course, my pain is nothing compared to yours. You were his friends. The truth is, I seem to have had a heavy head ever since I woke this morning. A heavy head? That's interesting. My head's still throbbing too. Yeah, it's the gas evidence. Okay, see if anything's changed. It really is such a beautiful color, this glass. It looks like whatever it was broken clean in two. But the other half is nowhere to be seen. And then there's the brick-colored mark, which is shoe polish according to that great detective you seem to know all about. I suppose it must be from Kazuma-sama's shoes. Maybe, but what I'd like to know is, how can the detective be so sure that it's shoe polish and not something else? Because he's a great detective, of course. That's hardly a reason, is it? Huh. Okay. Nothing new. Ah! Look, Naruhodo-san. Seaman Stroganoff is gone. Strong enough? The burly Russian sailor who's always crossing his arms and glaring at us. Oh, so it's like a double pun. Strong enough. All these Russian names are impossible to remember. You can't remember Biff Stroganoff. Oh la la. Did you hear that? Oh no, it's gonna be the detective. It sounded like someone singing. Tra la la, lira lira lay. I did it the great detective way. This caroling, I know that lark-like voice. Well, never mind that now. This is a golden opportunity for us. Yes, you're right. We must seize it. Let's get inside Miss Pavlova's cabin while we can and investigate. Definitely. Before that stringy knot crewman comes back. Mr. Stroganoff, not stringy knot. No, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to defy the order of things. It's Pavlova's cabin. This could be our chance. What? The burly sailor doesn't appear to be around at the moment. We can investigate every last inch of that cabin. I'm not sure if we could go that far, but we could certainly do this without looking around more. Do with looking around more. I'm sure we could learn something. Oh, it's Mr. Sholmes, look. Howdy, you never know where he's going to turn up next, do you? He seems to be stealing a look at something as he sings to himself. I'm not doing it again. He's still singing. Do you think he hasn't noticed us? Or simply in extremely high spirits? Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when the yard bit off more than it could chew. And through it all when there was doubt, its lucky hairlock was about. Excuse me. I solved it all and I stood tall. I did it the great detective way. Mr. Sholmes? Is that it? You want to fight, hmm? Honestly, interrupting a fellow when he's singing? No, just about to reach the climactic finish. Sorry, I thought you were never going to stop, so I figured now is a good time as any. I very nearly dropped you on the floor with one of my famous right hooks. Alright, I get the picture. Now could you put those fists away? Mr. Sholmes? You seem to be examining something before we interrupted you. Ah, yes, that. I was immersed in study of the ship's log, as pinned by the stockily built crewman who's usually on guard here. Yes, the ship's log. And did you find anything useful from it? Well, after 2 a.m. this morning, the majority of the entries are blank. Which means that there was nothing to report, nothing of note happened, so... Ah ha 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 ha. You truly are a student from the land of the rising sun. You've been utterly blinded by it. Yeah, I mean, if there's nothing written, that's a clue in itself. Sorry? Your logic, my boy, is inverted. Whatever you mean, Mr. Sholmes. Observe the other pages and all shall become clear. It would seem the same crewman off stands sentry in the first-class passageway. And he has an almost religious practices of recording nothing to report every half hour. Oh, he writes that in every 30 minutes. Nothing to report. Precisely. Put simply, the seaman writes nothing to report when there is just that. And yet, the ship's log from last night is largely blank. He didn't even write nothing to report. Do you mean... Yes, there were circumstances afoot last night which led to the seaman being absent from his post. What kind of circumstances? What happened? That remains a mystery for now, but we can be sure something significant took place. So significant that it caused the seaman to forget his regular habit of scribing nothing to report in the log. These are important details. I would stake my life on it. You must log the ship's log in your mental file. The ship's log has been entered into the court record. Now that deduction was worthy of a great detective. Ah, you're starting to understand what my way is, I see. That makes Sholmes. Brilliance. Oh, ouch. What is it? Are you hurt? Oh, don't worry yourself. I seem to be afflicted with a throbbing head this morning. For some reason, nothing more. Well, my friends, until our next encounter. Yeah, some gas happened. He's still singing to himself. I can hear it as he wanders off down the passageway. Is something wrong, Susato-san? You seem lost in thought. It's just... Well, I feel the same. Sorry? Ever since I woke this morning, I've had something of a headache. A sort of continuous throbbing. Oh, you too? Just in case. Okay. Well, time to do the moves then. Miss Pavlova isn't back yet. Susato-san. Oh, where's she gone? Hey, what are you doing? Those are her private things. There's not a moment to waste, Naruhodo-san. We must investigate quickly as we can. I suppose you're right. For Kazuma's sake. Not just for Kazuma-sama. What do you mean? It can't be long until we arrive at port in Hong Kong. I don't want you to be in those handcuffs when we get there. Really? We must solve this case, Naruhodo-san. By ourselves if we have to. Yes, we will. Let's start over here. Ladder's not something to investigate? Trash. I suppose every cabin has a waste paper basket. Shall we have a little look and see what's been thrown away? Naruhodo-san. It's poor etiquette to go sifting through someone's rubbish, you know. Those eyes. She's looking at me like I'm a piece of rubbish now. However, these are special circumstances, I think. Exactly, we have no choice. There's hardly anything in here at all. Oh, well, that's a little disappointing. But what is in there? Quality matters, not quantity. There are just a few books on the desk, nothing else by the looks of it. Well, Miss Pavlova only ran away from the ballet last night. She hardly occupied this cabin for any time at all. That's true. I wonder what kind of books she likes to read. Let's see. Yes, I see. It seems that Miss Pavlova enjoys reading books written in Russian. Thanks. I think I probably already knew that. It's rude to ask so much of people, Naruhodo-san. Kindly remember that. Oh my, Miss Pavlova's case is open. It's completely empty inside, but according to the great detective's great deduction, she was hiding her special friend in there. Yes, a friend that she had to keep secret. Because you're not allowed to bring animals aboard the SS Birya. I wonder what kind of animals she had in there. And more to the point, where it is now. Right behind you. Okay. All the books have toppled over together. Look, every single one. Do you think that's a god of the sea, perhaps? He's toppled too, though. It's exactly the same as the bookcase next door. In Kazuma's cabin. Perhaps Miss Pavlova was practicing a different ballet pose and fell against the bookcase. I don't know, would she really be practicing ballet on the same night she ran away from her ballet company? Alright then. It must have been you. You lost your temper and knocked them all over in a fit of rage. Not everything bad that happens on the ship is because of me, you know? Well, anyway, I'll set them all straight again in here too. I don't like seeing things in disarray. I wonder what the plot significance of setting them straight is. Ah yes, they're displayed in this cabin too, look. The SS Burya's rules of passage. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. I suppose Miss Pavlova realized that she needed to keep the contents of her case a secret after she read this. Her special friend, I mean. I wonder where her friend has disappeared to now. She's probably having fun exploring the ship, I imagine. I just hope Seaman Stroganoff doesn't find it and throw it overboard. Oh yes, so do I. This cabin door has the same simple sort of bolted latch that our cabin door has. If the bolt's drawn across, there's no way anybody could enter the cabin from outside. Yes, it's not a particularly heavy-duty bolt, is it? But still, it wouldn't slide across on its own accord, would it? No, and the door is made of metal, so there's no chance of trickery using magnets to unbolt from the outside. And it seals up perfectly too, to stop any seawater coming in. So you couldn't use the method you told me of passing a thread through a crack under the closed door either. I seem to know a lot of tricks for opening doors. I'm starting to see why they suspect me. Naruhodo-san, are you there? Sorry, I'm right here. Yes, why? Oh, good. I thought you might have climbed into the wardrobe when I wasn't looking. There's no place like home. Believe me, I don't have some strange compulsion to jump inside every wardrobe I see, you know. Well, anyway, I'm not sure anyone could fit inside this one. It's full of beautiful outfits. I suppose they're all stage costumes. I was rather hoping we might find Miss Pavlova's friend hiding in there, but no such luck. There's one of these next to the bed in Kazuma's cabin, too. Yes, it's a bell cord. I can't resist. She barely hesitated there, and she gave it a good tug, too. No, I didn't actually expect anyone to come. We wouldn't want anybody to come. We don't want them to. We're trying to investigate in secret. So this is this ventilator connects to Kazuma's cabin next door. There's always a vent. Yes, although what a fool a shipbuilder must be to open a ventilator into another room. Ah, maybe. It's so that if there's a gas leak next door, the occupant of this cabin would notice and raise the alarm. Or the occupants of both cabins would die of gas poisoning. That is a possibility. Anyway, last night, Kazuma wrote that he saw a speckled band come out from this ventilator. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Oh, what's that? Hit an iceberg. Shut down the engines immediately. Vessel sighted a quarter-mile 4. Full stop, hard to starboard. All hands brace for impact. What the? I think we're about to crash into another ship. What? I can't stand. Sato-san, are you alright? Are you injured at all? I think I'm fine, thank you, Naruhodo-san. This probably conveniently revealed something previously hidden, didn't it? And it locked the deadbolt. Oh, and it knocked the books. Okay, so that solves. So this makes it pretty clear. There was a hard turn to starboard. When the hard turn happened, it knocked the books over, and it shut the deadbolt. So the locked room is either a convenience, or the captain was in on the plot. Or someone who had access to the steering of the ship. I think, yes, the ship has come to a stop. Oh my goodness, what about you, Naruhodo-san? Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Oh, is there anybody in there? Shout if you need assistance. Oh, that sounds like Inspector Hosonaga. Is that you in there, Naruhodo-san? Bolt the door, quickly. What's the bolt? Look at that. The door's bolted. Did you do that, Susato-san? No, I didn't touch it. Well, that's strange. How did... And look at all the books. They're just like they were before again. Naruhodo-san, aren't you going to open the door and let the inspector in? I'd better tidy this place up first. Our violent emergency stop had solved one mystery at least in a very vivid way, but I knew that what waited us on the other side of the cabin door would not be pleasant. I hurried around tidying up the cabin with a new sense of foreboding in my heart. To be continued. Okay, we're only an hour in, so we're gonna keep going. The second part of the investigation was a lot shorter than the first. Somehow, the door to the cabin we were in ended up bolted after we made an emergency stop. Susato-san took a deep breath, then gently slid back the bolt. You, what are you doing in Miss Pavlova's quarters? Ah, you both look unhurt. Good. Yes, we're fine, thank you. What on earth happened? We heard something about how we were going to collide with another ship. Yes, it appears to have been a false report, though. Oh, how did that happen? There's a dense fog outside, so it's extremely difficult to see. Someone must have thought he saw a ship ahead. This person obviously triggered the alarm, and that's why we made an emergency stop. Everything is chaos. Passengers are screaming. Crew are running everywhere. This first class area is the only quiet part of the ship at the moment. Oh, I see. Somebody triggered the alarm. Does that mean that someone pressed that button outside? Oh, you wicked intruder. You dressed all in black. You are the devil. Sorry, me. I've been called a lot of things before, but devil is a first. You opened my traveling case. How could you? What? No, we didn't touch it. That's right, Miss Pavlova. It was already opened when we came into your cabin. Inspector. Yes? Arrest this man. I know he did it. He's a criminal, and it's not enough that he has killed a man. Ah, and he's a stowaway as well. If Vixen promises not to steal chicken, do you believe? Ah. Take him away. He is a trespasser as well as everything else. Stowing away, trespassing, killing. She is right, you are devil. It doesn't look good, does it? There is a cell below deck, throw him in. Tomorrow we dock in Hong Kong. Then we give you straight to police. Wait, a cell? Please, Inspector Osunaga, is there something you can do? Is there nothing you can do? This is a Russian vessel. I really have no jurisdiction here. After my last effort to appeal to the captain's good nature, I think I'm out of options. This is terrible. This is a real crisis. I've got to find a solution. Immediately. I just need to keep calm and focus on the task at hand. Which is investigating. Don't touch my things. You want me to show you where the cryfish hibernates? Yeah. Sir Naruhodo, what do you think you're doing? Wow, everyone's attacking me. And I was just starting to think she was my friend. Oh, I have to click the right thing. Isn't there anyone who can help me out of this mess? Inspector. Okay. Okay, so my options are Biff, Pavlova, the inspector, and what are you doing up there? Mr. Sholmes? Naturally, I was analyzing what a weight of 20,000 rubles feels like on one's head. I have not told you that as a detective, it is my business to know what other people do not. This isn't mere tomfoolery, my boy. No, 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 no. Well, why were you hanging from that hook before then? Isn't that obvious? To properly assess the weight of the 20,000 rubles, naturally. I wish to determine if it would bend that conceited looking hook on the wall, so full of brag and bounce. I never know whether to take this man seriously or not. You again? The great detective? Inspector, I confess I've been looking for you. I have something to report to you most urgently. Well, you might try looking for me somewhere other than a hook on the wall next time. What is to report? Speak. Urgent report from a great detective can mean but one thing. Yes. The case of the curious murder that took place last night, here on this vessel, the steamship Birya, has been solved. By me, naturally. But we're gonna have to replace his statements, but close. Really? Yes, I have eliminated all other possibilities. No other explanations exist. So, allow me to eliminate all your minds. For I'm about to reveal my great detective's greatest admired great deduction on the case. While wearing the crown? What? You have solved it? Even Hedgehog understands this case. We all knew who was responsible for killing student boy this morning when we found criminal in wardrobe. It is this stowaway, and he has handcuffs to prove it. I didn't do it. The trouble is, there doesn't appear to be anyone else who could have killed the victim, because as everyone knows, the cabin door was bolted shut from the inside. That means the culprit must be someone who was inside the cabin. Yes, it's what's called a locked room mystery in detective stories. Locked room, that is point. Room was locked? Well, I can't deny that. There's no way the bolt could have been drawn across from outside the cabin. You're all quite mistaken. The cabin next door is not a so-called locked room at all. What? Oh yes, there is another entrance. An entrance used last night by the culprit in order to gain access to the cabin, despite the bolted door. What other entrance? You never discovered one. Why, it gapes open-mouthed at you even as we speak. The ventilator, man. Oh, I thought there was a door in the back of the wardrobe. The ventilator? Gah ha 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 ha. There's a grate over that. You think this is funny? I can't even put my arm around through that hole. That's because your arms are as thick as tree trunks. You're suggesting that the culprit entered and left the victim's cabin through that tiny opening? But it's not possible. Ah, but it is. And last night, the victim even witnessed the intruder in the act of passing through the ventilator. Mr. Sholmes, do you mean... Are you referring to the words Kazuma-sama wrote in his diary? 1:23 a.m. I can hear a faint whistling sound. 1:35 a.m. what looks like some sort of speckled band is dangling from the ventilator grill. Precisely, my dear madame. What does it mean? What is this speckled band? The answer to that particular conundrum is in this very cabin. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? There is a distinct element of danger, but fear not, I am ready. What I am about to expose to you all to see will shock you to your cores. Behold. What the... The snake. Allow me to introduce you all to the band, the speckled band. A snake? Indubitably. Mr. Sholmes, just one thing. Pray, what troubles you? Well, that snake, is it really speckled? Is it? It looks more stripy, wouldn't you say? Oh. Yes, you're right. I think in this case you'd have to call it a striped band, wouldn't you? And plus, the snake couldn't write in Russian, which is important because they had to have written something in Russian using Kazuma's finger. You both see and observe with distinction, however. Do you not think that is precisely the trap into which the culprit wishes you to fall? Oh my goodness, really? It's a trap? How exactly? I think perhaps it is time I explain the intricacies of my train of thought. Are you ready, Miss Pavlova? I'm sorry for the young man who died, but that is all. His death has nothing to do with me. This whole thing has nothing to do with me. There are two conclusions I have drawn from the facts. Number one, last night your friend infiltrated the victim's cabin. And number two, the same friend was responsible for the victim losing his life. That's wrong, because it has to have been written... Nope. You're not there yet, because he had to... Because the turning the ship locks the door has to matter, and the writing in Russian had to be done. She's turned as white as a bowl of rice again. Sholmes must be right. He's hit the nail on the head. Nope. Nope. This young woman's friend killed Mr. Asogi? It looks like he can't speak with that snake coiled around his head. I would advise as little movement as possible, Seaman. You wouldn't want the fangs of that long friend in your neck. So everyone, let us begin. Herlock Sholmes is proud to present his logic and reasoning spectacular. Which is going to... I have to do this mechanic again. Okay. Miss Pavlova, moments ago you claimed the following. His death has nothing to do with me. The whole thing has nothing to do with me. Yet you cannot deceive yourself. Yes, when you recall those horrid events, your aching heart smarts with pain. And it is that very pain that evidences your inextricable link to the victim's death. Man, Pavlova must really hate this guy at this point. So, we ask, what was the nature of this intruder that stole into the victim's cabin on that portentous night? Why, naturally, it was the friend with which you boarded this vessel, was it not? Ah, as I suspected, another telltale glance. Without doubt, your friend is the writhing serpent we see before us. And yet, that fact leaves us with a quandary. The victim's written observation in the night in question tell of a speckled band. Whereas, regrettably, this specimen's markings do not fit that description in any way. What explanation can we give, Frey? What was this slight that fell upon the victim's eyes last night? No, don't look at me. This has nothing to do with this has nothing to do with any of this. Oh, but it does. You have the answer to this quandary even now, hidden behind your back. Yes, but trying but failing to conceal can only be the snake's sloughed skin. Evidently, after the subtle and horrible crime, this most deadly friend of yours molted. Shed its original skin, no? I don't know what you are talking about. Last night, though the ventilator visible in this cabin, your then speckled friend slithered next door. Using the bell cord on the other side of the bridge, the serpent silently descended into the victim's quarters. In the dim light, it appeared to the young gentleman who was about to lose his life as a speckled band. In summary, the nature of this friend of yours, which last night infiltrated the scene of the crime, is a rare breed of snake, whose markings change each time it sloughs its skin. A snake so dreadful, we can only imagine if it would be found in the deepest depths of India. We don't have a mechanism of death, you don't have a way to explain the writing in Russian. Unless Pavlova wanted to cover for it. Moving on. We come to the heart of the matter, the grim demise of the victim. How did this young man lose his life, and why? According to the data which I have been apprised, it would appear that there is no visible signs of injury. Ah. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by a terrible venom, which is incorrect. Now, if we take that as fact, you can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to affirm it at the scene of the crime. Oh no, could there be? Yes, I'm examining the deceased body. We will prove the cause of death conclusively. The almost, but not quite, imperceptible puncture wounds left by the venomous fangs will seal the truth. Yes, the vestiges of a snake bite delivered by your terrifying friend. This makes no sense. There is no point feigning ignorance, Miss Pavlova. After the incident, you endeavored to hide everything, didn't you? But now your involuntary glance betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right, you hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that traveling case. First met in this cabin, it came to my attention that your case moved periodically. Your serpent assassin was restless inside, no doubt. You don't. It is telling that the victim made note of a low whistling sound that he heard minutes before his end. That was your signal, was it not? The sound you had used to train your serpent friend. Train? Indeed, you'd put the serpent through this ventilator and wait. After a period, you'd summon it back with a whistle. You couldn't know if the animal had done its duty, so you would listen for signs of life next door. If the victim appeared not to have been dispatched, you'd release the snake once more. Do you deny the snake has undergone such training? It's not true. Having slithered through the ventilator and down the bell cord, the creature needed only to sink its fangs in once. And its venom could course through the victim's veins, ending his existence forever. That is the true nature of the speckled band that took the poor young man's life, and tried to break this all to pieces. There can be no doubt my logic is infallible. In fact, it's accepted as completely and utterly stupid. Time to do the mechanic. This concludes Sherlock Holmes' right deduction of the speckled band. Miss Pavlova has trained her pet as a killing machine. There on the floor, you'll observe a saucer of milk. The promise of food is the key of training any creature. Incredible. You solved the mystery. Amazing. Your great deduction really lives up to its name. I see now why Sherlock Holmes has become such a household name. My dear man, it was nothing remarkable. As the Russians say, I could have done it with one left hand. I know we're gonna have to correct this, and I have to scroll through dialogue to get there, and it's gonna be painful because I know this is wrong, but I don't have the chance to write it wrong. Could I venture an opinion, Mr. Sholmes? But of course, what's on your mind? It's just about your deductions before. They don't match the post-mortem report. Some things don't quite make sense to me. I welcome questions as to my method, and will answer most loudly and proudly. Oh, well, good. First of all, snakes are egg-laying creatures, part of the reptile family. You are well informed, madam. And reptiles, don't drink milk. Ah. It's really only mammals that like to drink milk, you see. So, I'm not sure it would be possible to train a snake using milk as a reward. No matter. No doubt Miss Pavlova used some other treat to encourage her pet to do her bidding. Milk is merely an example. The logic holds. Well, there is something else. Snakes have no ears. Ah. Yeah, so I'm not sure it would really be possible to signal a snake by whistling. But madame, what are the tales from Arabia? Have you heard of snakes that dance to the sound of a flute? I think perhaps the performers played their music in time with the snake's natural movements. Oh, I see. No hands, no feet, no ears? These creatures are so inept to be practically useless. Don't take it out on the snakes, Mr. Sholmes. There is one other thing. Yeah, more? Snakes use the scales on their bellies to propel themselves. So, I'm not really sure that a snake could manage to climb up a flat bell cord like the ones in these cabins. Then it should try harder. Please, don't be angry with me, Mr. Sholmes. The point is, even if the snake had gone through the ventilator to the next door cabin, it couldn't have come back without help. What I'm trying to say is that there are a number of reasons why it's difficult to imagine the snake could have had a part in this. I think we need to step in and help again, We need to step in and help again, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh no, you don't mean... Yes, we need to modify Mr. Sholmes' latest deductions and turn them into the great ones they ought to be. I had a feeling that was coming. Alright, let's give it a try. This what was I waiting for, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, right. So, cast your eyes down on your wrists again. What? You've done it again. Your handcuffs are gone. Where'd they go? Fear not, I shall see that they're restored after our work is done. I really wish you'd leave them off. Now, everyone, let us begin. Herlock Sholmes is proud to present his logic and reasoning spectacular. Let me check something here. Okay. Definitely have time to do this. Okay. She does have a pained expression on her face. Yes, that's true. She looks as though Kazuma-sama's death is weighing heavily on her mind. But you're not sure Mr. Sholmes has read her quite correctly, is that it? Could there be some other way to interpret her expression, then? Let's take a moment and really look very closely at Miss Pavlova. Look at her hand. Oh, Naruhodo-san, look. That looks like a very painful wound. It looks like a scratch made by some kind of small animal. And fairly recently, too. Well, whatever scratched her doesn't appear to be around here. Oh. I have to present. This is just like investigating.
Yes!
Yes, when you recall those horrid events, the claw scratch marks with pain. The claw scratch smarts with pain. Indeed, a simple observation reveals that the wound is fresh. Miss Pavlova, did you in fact receive that scratch? sometime last night. I have to deal with something here. Sorry, someone called me on the phone wanting to take a survey, which usually they'll claim take 10 minutes and usually takes an hour. Although I personally have never done one, but so I just hung up. I think about the young man who died next door. I feel so sad. And when I am sad, the pain from this wound is worse. And it is that very pain that evidences your inexorable link to the victim's death. So we ask, what was the nature of this intruder that stole into the victim's cabin on that portentous night? Why, naturally, it was the friend with which you boarded this vessel, was it not? As I suspected, another telltale glance. Without doubt, your friend is the writhing serpent we see before us. Oh, it seems likely that the scratch mark on the back of Miss Pavlova's hand was made by this friend of hers, doesn't it? Except, snakes don't have claws, do they? No, they don't. They don't even have hands or feet on which claws might grow. Okay. Well then, if that snake isn't her pet, what is it? What is? What's the true identity of this friend of hers? We should follow her gaze, Naruhodo-san. That's where we'll find the answer. I have a feeling that it was this teapot that Miss Pavlova's eyes flickered over to before. You think it's this? Nope. It's the picture. Whatever we might say about it, if that's the way she feels, I don't think I'll say anything about it then. You and the teapot can discuss it instead. Wait, that's not what I meant. Oh, look at the photograph in this frame. This must be something Miss Pavlova brought with her when she ran away. She is exceptionally beautiful, isn't she? Yes, that's true. But personally, it's the little black creature she's holding that's caught my eye. Maybe we'd better take a look at this.
Yes!
This looks like I'm gonna lose health here. Considering the fact that you ran away from your homeland on your own, you have no friends at the moment, except yourself. I mean, it's not my intention to make you feel bad. What precisely was your intention with that, Mr. Naruhodo? Just following the natural progression of deduction, sometimes the truth hurts. Well, the truth is, you do have a turn for observation or deduction. Did that hurt? Yes, a lot. What? Oh dear. Look at this little cat Miss Pavlova is cuddling here. Oh, that's what a cute little... I thought I just needed to present the photograph. Oh, what a cute little kitten. It could vie with you, couldn't it, Naruhodo-san? For the blackest outfit. A black kitten. And from the look of this picture, at least, Miss Pavlova seems very attached to it.
Yes!
Without doubt, your little friend is the little kitten we see before us. Yes, the scratches on the back of your hand makes that abundantly clear. Oh no. The whereabouts of this black kitten isn't clear, but what is clear is that you brought the animal with you when you ran away, didn't you? Ah. Darka is my best friend. I couldn't leave her behind. Darka would appear to be a Russian blue. And yet, the facts leave us in a quandary. The victim's written observations on the night in question tell of a speckled band. Whereas, regrettably, this specimen's markings do not fit the description in any way. What explanation can we give, pray? What was this sight that fell upon the victim's eyes last night? No, don't look at me. This has nothing to do with any of this. Oh, but it does. You got the answer to this quandary even now hidden behind your back. Yes, that which you are trying but failing to conceal can only be the snake's sloughed skin. That looks like cloth. Did you see that? She just took something out of her pocket and hid it behind her back. If she just left it in her pocket, no one would ever have known. Oh yes, ploys like that are Mr. Scholl's specialty. He even so cleverly forced her to reveal something. I thought deduction was his specialty, or maybe making me believe that was a ploy too. Anyway, I find it hard to believe that that's the skin of a snake. In which case, just what is Miss Pavlova hiding behind her back? Well, it is speckled, and it is a band, but what is it? It seems to be sort of soft and fluffy, a long piece of cloth of some sort. And what looks like a handle on one end. Maybe it's a cat's toy. This sort is common in the West, apparently. How is it a toy for cats? Cats like to chase the band around and paw at it. Kittens in particular love this sort of play. You only need to wave it in front of them and they pounce to catch it. That sounds positively adorable.
Yes!
I love how there just happened to be a snake conveniently there as a distraction. Yes, the thing you are trying but failing to conceal is a cat's toy? Precisely, and the true nature of the now infamous speckled band. And it was that toy that you dangled from the ventilator. You waved it around, I presume. Naturally, the victim could not fail to notice it. But why? What was the reason? My dear boy, there can only be one answer to that. After her feline friend disappeared through the ventilator into the neighboring cabin, Miss Pavlova attempted to use a speckled cat's toy to incite the creature to return. Ah. In summary, the nature of this friend of Miss Pavlova's, which last night infiltrated the scene of the crime, is a blithesome Russian blue breed of cat by the name of Darka. A truly troublesome feline young Darka is proving to be. She must be caged once found. You'll forgive us for borrowing the photograph of your pet, Miss Pavlova. The photograph of Miss Pavlova and Darka has been entered into the court record. It was after I gave her her food last night. That's when it happened. She scratched the back of my hand and then ran up the bell cord. Before I could do anything, she had disappeared through the ventilator. Darka, she is so naughty. Moving on, we come to the heart of the matter, the grim demise of the victim. How did the young man lose his life, and why? According to the data from which we have been apprised, it would appear that there were no visible signs of injury. Ah. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by terrible venom. What Mr. Shom says is true. There were no signs of a wound anywhere on Kazuma-sama's body. That's right, but Mr. Shom seems to be unaware of one very important detail. Kazuma wasn't poisoned. Yes, it would seem so. Let's give him the information he's missing now.
Yes!
In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by the post-mortem report. Ah yes, I knew it was one or the other. His neck was? Indeed, the breaking of the cervical vertebrae is fatal. Only that Goliath would be strong enough to survive that. Seaman Stroganov isn't some immortal freak, you know. The jury is out. Anyway, we have one good authority that the victim's neck was broken. Now, if we take that as fact, we can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to affirm it at the scene of the crime. Oh no, could there be... Yes, an examination of the deceased's body will prove the cause of death conclusively. Kazuma died because his neck was broken. In other words, he was probably struck by something, or someone. Yes, that's a distinct possibility. As of yet, no weapon has been found, though. Presumably Darka didn't silently creep up behind Kazuma and deal him a fatal blow. I suppose it's possible that he had a fall and hit the ground awkwardly. It could have been a terrible act of misfortune that he broke his neck completely by accident. Oh yes, a bad fall could explain it. It's rather hard to believe of Kazuma-sama, though. He wasn't a clumsy man. Well, we need to fix this deduction somehow. Is there something from the scene that could explain what happened?
Yes!
Break! Yes, an examination of the mark on the floor will prove the cause of death conclusively. This particular mark, so prominently visible next to the victim's body, is a deposit of shoe polish. Shoe polish? Indeed, positively identified by a little analysis device I constructed, which I carry now as a matter of course. Beeswax, tallow, and dye were my results. The undeniable ingredients of shoe polish. And the color of the polish is a perfect match to the color of Mr. Asogi's laced leather shoes. Looking at this mark, it is not hard to imagine what happened. For some reason, Mr. Asogi must have caught his foot at that point on the floor and tripped. Please, no. And by a dreadful turn of misfortune, caught his neck against some immovable object as he fell to the floor. Suffering a fatal blow to the spine, the victim's vertebrae shattered, and in that instant he lost his life. No. I don't know. I don't know why that was a big no. I don't know anything about this. Is that really true, Miss Pavlova? What about the evidence left at the scene where Mr. Asogi lost his life? Yes, the facts are as clear as day to me. You did all you could to conceal the incriminating evidence. But now your involuntary glance betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right, you hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in your... I don't believe it. Kazuma-sama merely tripped over and now he's no more? It can't be true. I refuse to accept it. This is Ace Attorney. I have to have a turnabout. I have to accuse someone else of it. I know it's hard to believe, but the mark on the floor does seem to suggest that's what happened. But, and if this part of Mr. Shulm's deduction is right, Miss Pavlova is trying to hide some evidence that would prove it. Here in this cabin, somewhere in the direction that she cast her eyes. Where, I wonder? Let's have a good look around. The answer must be here somewhere. Seriously? Ah, somebody appears to have dropped the 20,000 rubles here. Hasn't been dropped, Naruhodo-san. It's been placed. I'm starting to sound like Mr. Sholmes. Stop trying to sound like the great detective. It's a waste paper basket. Perhaps all the first-class cabins have them. Ms. Pavlova only started occupying this cabin late last night. Presumably there's not much rubbish in there yet. Of course. Oh, what's that? The broken piece of glass, isn't it? Yes, it is. And I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. If it looks familiar, perhaps it's more than your mind simply playing tricks on you. I have to present it. Let me go to the next line of dialogue until it's completed the previous one. So it's somewhat annoying.
Yes!
That's right, you hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that waste paper basket. Ah. Here we have a fragment of some intricate glass object, it would seem. One that is a familiar... that was a familiar air, that has a familiar air, in fact. Precisely, we found another piece of broken glass on the floor in Mr. Asogi's cabin. And, as you can see, the two pieces fit together perfectly. Oh no. So, Miss Pavlova, shall we consider what this tells us? Why would it be that part of this glass object, which was evidently broken at the scene of the victim's death, should be found in the waste paper basket in your cabin? You're well acquainted with this glass bell, are you not? I don't know. Is that hushed Russian accent of yours? Won't save you this time, dear girl. Why? Because we have conclusive evidence linking you to the bell in question. What? Take it away, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? The evidence linking Miss Pavlova to this little glass bell would be... Yep.
Yes!
If you look at this photograph, you can clearly see, hanging from Darka's collar, is the very glass bell in question. Truth has caught up with you, Miss Pavlova. The young man who lost his life last night did so after a truly inauspicious fall. And the cause of that fateful stumble your absent feline friend, Darka. I couldn't tell anyone. I'm sorry. Hey, is there not going to be a trial in this? Is this just like an investigation, like a Miles Edgeworth style thing, where you just kind of investigate it and figure out how it happened? That's it? Why don't you tell us now, Miss Pavlova? Tell us exactly what happened last night. It was a little after 1 in the morning. It was late, but I hadn't had time to feed Darka, so I gave her some food. And then, all of a sudden, she scratched me and jumped out of my hands. People do say that cats become very anxious and nervous in new environments. She was so fast, she disappeared through the ventilator before I could stop her. And that was how you acquired acquired the rather nasty wound you have on your hand, I take it. Yes. And I had read the rules on the wall. I knew that I was not allowed Darka with me. Yes, modern science suggests that animals can carry infectious diseases. It's a precaution, really. So I listened and listened, trying to hear if there was some noise in the next cabin. It was very quiet. I was sure if someone was there, he must be sleeping. So at that point, you thought it safe to try to lure the kitten back again, by dangling the end of the toy through the ventilator and into the adjoining cabin. Dark always loves his toy, but it didn't work. Nothing worked. I tried using her favorite toy, I tried whistling to her softly, but nothing. She didn't return. So the faint whistling sound Kazuma wrote about in his diary was Miss Pavlova trying to retrieve her pet. Cats have a propensity to remain hidden in the shadows when frightened. Yes, so there was nothing else I could do. I just had to wait until she had calmed down. But then... I nearly passed out with shock. I heard her cry out, and then... Oh, it was such a dreadful bang. Then afterwards, nothing. It was totally silent. Kazuma was... From the appearance of the brown mark on the floor, it seems likely that what you heard was the victim stepping on the glass bell and tripping up. The SS Buria is a large vessel, but even she can pitch and roll violently without warning. Mr. Asogi was already off balance as a result of the ship lurching when the kitchen got under his feet. The combination of unfortunate factors could easily have caused him to fall over. What came of the kitten afterwards? In the end, I managed to get her to come back through the ventilator. Yet Darka is nowhere to be seen. I must have forgotten to lock my case, and now she's disappeared again. Gracious, that cat is as insufferably restless as I am. Well, he knows something about himself at least. When I woke this morning, I heard that a young man in the cabin next to mine had died. But I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone what had happened. I was too scared. Scared that they would send me back. Oh, hold on a minute. What about the snake? You're right, where is it? If the snake isn't your friend, Miss Pavlova, then whose is it and where did it come from? What on earth is such a dangerous creature doing on board this ship? Oh, I didn't say. Snake is my friend. His name is Purolsk. What? What? That snake belongs to you? He escaped from cage when emergency alarm sounded. I was looking for him. I did not expect to find him in here. Yes, how did that snake get into this cabin? But animals are not permitted on board. Ah, we are at sea for 1 year. You want to be long without close friend, without someone who understands? Couldn't you find someone a little more human who understands you better? But my dear burly fellow, a gargantuan venomous snake, surely you can appreciate the danger you're putting everyone in. Not all snakes are venomous. No venom. Prosko does not have venom. He is harmless. Very long, but very gentle. He is adorable, like Granny. It's venomless? Yes. Now he is hungry, so he is in bad mood. But once I feed him, you will see big smile. And you will feed him? What? Milk, I suppose? Ha, like they say they milk chickens? Ridiculous. Snakes that drink milk are only in stupid stories. Roscoe eats mouses, big fat round mouses. Oh, so is that what the mouse trap in the passageway out there is for? Of course. How else can I catch my friend's favorite food? Nothing says top of the food chain like the look in their eyes right now. It refuses to drink milk, it can't hear a whistle, it can't climb up a bell cord, and it's not even venomous. How the deuce did something so inept land a staring rule? It's not my fault. I do not make up stories. Mr. Purosko has nothing to do with this incident. So that's what happened. That's the truth behind my best friend's tragic death. So who wrote the writing in Russian? Pavlova go back in there? He's not saying something. Miss Pavlova? I understand the difficult situation you found yourself in, and I do sympathize. But please remember this. As a young man lost his life. If you're going to attempt to cover up your guilt with lies, then no matter what the circumstances, I cannot forgive you. But what are you talking about, Miss Mikotoba? What lies? Miss Pavlova just confessed everything. It was just a series of unfortunate events, an accident. I'm not a great detective like Mr. Sholmes. I don't have a gift for knowing the truth. But even I can see that that was not the truth. Don't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Yep, I sure do. To be perfectly honest, yes. There's a discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure of it. I just can't quite put my finger on it. I confess, I was intending to let Scotland Yard deal with any understanding issues in this matter. Oh. I am only present here for a very specific reason. The truth is, you, Mr. Naruhodo, are simply a distraction. A distraction? I do hope you've not been finding your shackles too uncomfortable. Ah, not again. When did you do that? Especially if they're on your wrists as a result of my intervention. I was rather hoping I could resolve matters before we made our next port call. You were Mr. Sholmes? Yes, but I overlooked one important detail. The deceased young man was a very close companion of yours. Was he not? Yes. Kazuma was my closest friend. I owed him my freedom, even. In that case, we must follow this to its conclusion. No further distractions. You must uncover the real truth here, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, whatever that may be. The key to this is the discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure. If I can chase that down, maybe the truth will become clear. Okay, let's see, do I have time for this? Yes, I do. The truth about how you really died, and about how that scene in your cabin really came to be. Alright, I'll see what I can do. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo. So then, shall we begin? Yes. But we should ponder first. Is the victim who lost his life in a cabin that was bolted shut from the inside? Was this truly an unfortunate accident? Or was it in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. But we've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kitten that had climbed into his cabin via the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident.
Hold it!
Wait, let's just take a step back. It doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm going to have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. There's a clear contradiction between the facts and Miss Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right there in Kazuma's cabin, it's undeniable. His death couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to present the evidence. The evidence that proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident. The writing.
Yes!
The truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. There is no way that Mr. Asogi could have left his message on the floor. That script, it's Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The word written means wardrobe. I see what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language, Japanese in this case. But maybe he was studying Russian. It is a simple language. He could have picked it up very fast. That doesn't seem likely. That's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether he knew Russian or not. Sorry, what do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There's no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. And the reason why is clearly explained in here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. Instant death. Which means, after the victim fell onto the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything. Because he was already dead. That's not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Asogi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there, if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. What? So Susato-san has noticed it too, then. Putting this message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. Another piece of evidence that proves this was no accident. In other words... So we got the picture, the photograph, the ship's log, the bell, autopsy, I would think it would have been the ink. Okay, not weird. I mean, we understand why the bell could have been there. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. A remnant. Well, I guess I have to pick the only thing that's a remnant, though. It doesn't make any sense, though.
Yes!
This piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. But that's the glass belt the kitten had around his neck. We already know all about that. It's broken in half and the victim tripped over the cat and fell. Yeah, but both pieces would be on the floor. So we already... Oh yeah, I get it, because both pieces would be on the floor. The cat wouldn't have been able to get one half of it back. So they already have a satisfactory explanation. Where's the flaw in that logic? Unfortunately, there is a very big flaw. A fatal flaw. What? If that's really what happened, then how did one half of the bell end up back here in this cabin? Ah. But why would Pavlova only retrieve one side? Yes, remember what we found in the other half. Remember where we found the other half of the glass bell in that waste paper basket. Would you care to explain that, Miss Pavlova? Oh no. Both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Asogi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in the room. Or someone else came into the room just afterwards. And that same person deliberately arranged the scene to disguise the truth, in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Ka! Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Sogi's... You are wasting time. Someone else was there. Duh, of course, you know this. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. There was no way in or out. Oh, yes. The only other person in the cabin when young student died was you.
Yes!
It's true, I was in the cabin when it happened. You were shut inside the cabin wardrobe, to be precise about the details. But I don't know Russian, there's no way I could have left a message. Not would have, there's no way you could have left that message, to be precise about the details. Would you mind? Ah ha 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 ha. Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying, the person in question wrote the word wardrobe in Russian on the floor, in an attempt to incriminate me for the crime, even though I had been asleep in there the entire time. And then, the same person picked up the broken glass bell that had fallen on the floor, for fear it would become evidence that would show how Mr. Asogi really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? Leaving half behind was always going to raise questions. Well, yes, it was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. The single small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have cast any light onto the floor there. Little wonder then that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of the tiny item. Basically, convenience. You all suspect me, don't you? Seaman Stroganoff? Nina is woman of sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago, they noticed her dancing skills and she went away to join ballet company. But before, she was a dancer on this ship, a member of the ship's band. You do not accuse Ship's Angel of being criminal. Ah, so that's it. You say that when young student died, Nina was there in his cabin. But that is not possible. I give my tooth. Well, this is almost interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How can you be so sure? You are a great detective, you should know. Look, truth in eyes. Cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. Nobody could go into the cabin, not Nina, not anyone. Or do you want to tell me that the killer can walk through locked doors? Yet it's impossible. He's right. But wait, I've read about this in detective stories. People often tie thread around the door latches so that they can open and close them from the outside. Red? Are you stupid? These bulkheads are not barn doors. Certainly not. These are watertight doors, as one would expect to find on any modern steamship. Construction of heavy steel with not a gap in sight. Nor threads or needles or magnets could have been used. No, of course not. I thought so too. But Mr. Naruhodo suggested it earlier, so... So Sato-san, how could you just shift it onto me like that? So Seaman Stroganoff has a valid point. The cabin door could have been bolted shut from the outside. Come on! Not necessarily... What? I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. In this very cabin, we can see the traces of the method I have in mind having been used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? A way to shut the bolt of this cabin door from the outside? One way does spring to mind, yes? Do you really know what Mr. Sholmes means, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, and so should you. Because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So, would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? Point out the telling signs of the method that was used inside the cabin bolt across the outside. Oh, it doesn't give me a... Well, I gotta do it anyway.
Yes!
Look at the bookcase there. See how all the books and things on it have toppled over? That must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before. Yes, that's right. It's a very powerful vessel after all. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Very small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over. I believe, yes, it's what's known as the force of inertia, acting on objects. Is there nothing Sato-san doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book at least? Well, whatever it's called, the same force that pushed over those books on the bookshelf also made something else in this cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door. Ah. It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We had come into this cabin not long before, and we hadn't bolted the door. But then... Hello, is anyone there? Shout if you need assistance. Oh, that sounds like... Inspector Hosonaga. Oh yes. That's it. When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across and locked the door. Yes, it's made of metal, but it's small and light enough to be moved by the ship's sudden change of speed. Actually, being heavy would be an advantage. So, well, whatever. Or the force of impetia, if you want to call it that. Are you trying to say that last night, after Mr. Asogo was killed? The SS Beria made another emergency stop? When I woke up this morning and looked around the cabin, I thought it looked a little odd. All the books on the shelves had toppled over, and all the ornaments... It was almost as if someone had run their hand across the shelves and deliberately knocked everything over. Oh yes, I remember that. And I stood them all up again, didn't I? Then when we came into this cabin, we were surprised to see the same thing in here. All the books and everything had toppled over, just like in Mr. Asogi's cabin. Oh my. Do you have anything to say about this, Mrs. Pavlova? Are you out of your mind? You say Bernya made emergency stop. It does seem a little far-fetched. How could that possibly have happened? Unless you're saying that the culprit is actually someone from the engine room. Oh, it is simple enough. Hmm? Are you forgetting the button in the passageway outside? Used to trigger the emergency alarm? Oh yes, of course. There was a notice, wasn't there? Telling you only to press the button in times of emergency. On dark nights when the fog is dense, the captain cannot afford to rely on the eyes of his lookout alone. Hence the placement of a number of buttons around the vessel to allow any crewman to raise the alarm. Sort of button. One is almost compelled to press to satisfy one's curiosity. Wait, it was you? When the button is pressed, two things happen in the interest of safety. The emergency alarm bell rings and the vessel comes to a complete stop. As indeed it did a little earlier today. Mr. Sholmes? Surely it wasn't you who... As I always say, a button has but one purpose in life. To be pressed. Whatever the occasion. He sounds almost proud of himself. How dare you mess with ship? I report you to Captain. You are in much trouble now. Why are you even on the ship anyway? Now, I'm sure all that can wait until later. Let us not overlook the fact that we have now learnt a valuable lesson. When the vessel makes an emergency stop, the bolts on the cabin door slit closed. So, what we must now consider... Yes, it comes down to one thing now. Last night, after what happened to Mr. Asogi, did the ship make an emergency stop, or did it not? You are idiots. Burya is huge ship with many passengers. If we make emergency stop even in the middle of night, there would be chaos everywhere. What are your thoughts, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, it's certainly possible that some kind of emergency happened last night. We have evidence to support that idea. Really? What evidence, Mr. Naruhodo? Fascinating. Do show us, Mr. Goodman. What evidence promotes the theory that some emergency gripped this vessel last night?
Yes!
Seaman Stroganoff. It's your duty to patrol the first-class area of the ship, isn't that right? That is correct. Why? And the ship's log here. This would be where you record the details of your duties. What are you doing with that? That is mine. Ah, you rather carelessly left it atop the little makeshift bureau in the passageway out there. But as responsible passengers, we took it into our care with a mind to return it to you later. I left it there on purpose. That is where I put it always. The point is, looking at what you usually record, it's clear that under normal circumstances you write the phrase "nothing to report" every 30 minutes. But from 2 o'clock last night until first lights this morning, nothing was recorded at all. Nothing recorded in the log? That is... because nothing happened. But if nothing happened, you would normally write "nothing to report," wouldn't you? Gulp. Indeed so, which tells us that shortly after 2 a.m., something happened here aboard the SS Burya. Something sufficiently significant to make you forget to fill in the ship's log, in fact. Are you suggesting that the ship really did make an emergency stop in the middle of the night? Stop talking rubbish. If I'm perfectly honest, I find that a little hard to believe myself. Oh, why? Well, because if something as major as an emergency stop really had happened, surely all of us would have noticed. That's very true. Thanks to the emergency stop we experienced earlier, we all know what it feels like now. The ship lurched so violently, the alarm bell was so loud. I can't imagine that anybody would sleep through that, even if it happened in the dead of night. Everyone was gassed now. The gas is finally gonna happen! Well, no, that's a good point. What of the throbbing? Sorry, what do you mean? Your head, man. The throbbing of your head since this morning. We all have suffered with it. Oh, yes. I had a headache, you're right. In fact, I haven't been feeling myself since I woke up today. Nor have I. My head has been feeling heavy ever since dawn. Yes, you've all been afflicted, haven't you? Just as I suspected. He's right, my head's been throbbing today too. And since eating dinner yesterday evening, everything has felt sort of hazy. I can't really remember anything that happened after I climbed back inside the wardrobe. Then the first thing I noticed this morning was the throbbing pain in my head. I had already been dragged out of the wardrobe and had those handcuffs put on me by that point. Why didn't I wake up when all that was happening to me? Tell me, Mr. Maruhodo, you boarded this vessel as a stowaway, didn't you? Oh, well, yes. Sorry. Stowaway class of accommodation doesn't usually include meals. What did you survive on? Oh, well, Kazuma looked after me. He was always happy to share his meals. So you enjoyed some of the whole roast chicken dish that was served yesterday evening, I take it? Yes, in fact. I had all of that. Kazuma wasn't fond of chicken. Oh, really? So the victim didn't eat any of the chicken at all? That's right, he didn't touch it. Is that relevant? My dear fellow, does that not strike you? Oh, Mr. Sholmes, do you mean to say that there was something wrong with the chicken? I do. No, really, is that really true? So someone put anesthetic in the chicken, but Naruhodo was awake. No, not Naruhodo, was awake because he didn't eat the chicken. And Pavlova was awake because she didn't eat the chicken because she knew what was in it. The meal prepared for the passengers last night had been tampered with. Tampered with by the addition of a soporific designed to induce a very deep slumber in those who consumed it. A sleeping drug. Do you mean whoever did this laced every meal with a sleeping drug and no one would notice the ship's emergency stop? Mr. Naruhodo, of course that's not what Mr. Sholmes means. What a far-fetched idea. Precisely. Lacing every meal of every passenger on board with a soporific drug would certainly be impossible. Unless, that is, every single member of the crew was a conspirator. Well, seaman. Sorry to say that any more deception on this matter will get you nowhere. If you refuse to talk, there would have been an inquiry made through the shipping company, of course. And were that to happen, every member of the crew, and the captain himself, would be hauled over the coals. For aiding and abetting a renegade. Please, no more. I will tell everything. I cannot make problems like this for everyone anymore. These crewmen are your former comrades, I believe. Yes. So when I decided to run away, I asked them to help me. We all agreed to help. Everyone together. She threw away everything, her fame in the ballet, Mother Russia. We wanted to help our angel. I don't believe it. You are right. We put sleeping drug in chicken last night. Yes, I remember now. I did notice chewing on a lump of something strange and bitter at one point. We could not make it all drug. How do you say, dissolve? Talk about heavy seasoning. At midnight in waters near Shanghai, we brought our angel on board. She was helped by comrade on shore with small fishing boat. While all the passengers on the SS Beria slept soundly, thanks to the almost magical effects of the slumber-inducing potion their evening meals had contained. So if that's what happened, the only people awake on the ship last night were the crew, people who disliked chicken, and the newly boarded passenger, Miss Pavlova. And that means it would have been possible for you. You could have used the emergency stop trick to lock Kazuma's cabin door. But how does that make sense? Surely every cabin door would have ended up locked in that case, and there would have been complete chaos. Oh, I wouldn't say so. What? Of course. Just like us, all the other passengers would have eaten their evening meals of chicken in their cabins, after which they would have been overwhelmed by tiredness because of the sleeping drug. Quite, and accordingly, all passengers were already in their cabins for the night. Yes. The overwhelming majority of passengers would habitually sleep with their cabin doors bolted anyway. And so not one of them would have found it remarkable to find the door locked in the morning. In summary, in order to fasten the bolt of a single cabin door on the ship, the culprit brought the entire vessel to an emergency stop in the early hours of the morning. You have talked long time and said many things. What is point? The point is, what I said earlier. There was somebody else present on the scene when the victim lost his life last night. Someone who left a message in Russian on the floor in an attempt to incriminate another. Someone who tried desperately to hide the broken fragments of glass that would reveal the culprit's identity. And someone who abused the ship's emergency stop procedure in order to lock a door. All told, a busy night. But... I don't know any of this. I am just a little girl. You like to speak with your long English words and explain your clever ideas. But I am sailor, and sailors don't listen to long, boring stories. We don't believe. Sailors like me, we trust only what we see with our eyes. A laudable trait. What? I am quite the same disposition, my good man. Observation to me is everything. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? Do you hear it? That accusatory cry of guilt on the wind? What accusatory cry of guilt? Sorry, you've lost me. Proof of involvement, man. But you can't hear such a call with your ears. No, you must hear it with your eyes. For observation is the basis of all deduction. What are you talking about? I believe the time has come for one final logic and reasoning spectacular, the truth. Okay. 20 minutes. See if I can finish this in 20 minutes. Is what exactly, Mr. Sholmes? With observation, my dear fellow, just as I said, of these two prevaricators. Observation. If you remember, Mr. Naruhodo, we know that somebody tried to fabricate evidence, don't we? By tampering with the scene of Mr. Asogi's death. What we're looking for is some trace evidence that one of these two was there when it happened. Precisely. You were delightfully quick to grasp my meaning. Alright, I'll see what I can do, what I can see. So we're looking for a trace evidence that shows someone else was there last night when Kazuma died. examine this. He has arms like tree trunks, doesn't he? Hairy tree trunks. Yes, he certainly has sailor's arms. He's a born man of the sea. Even if I had been awake, I couldn't have done anything about being dragged out of that wardrobe by this man. Naruhodo-san. Are you alright? You seem to be lost in thought. Oh, sorry. Blame those hairy tree trunks. It's not very useful. There we go. Oh, look at this. It's some kind of stain in an unusual place. Yes, you're right. Looks like ink, if I'm not mistaken. Ink. And look at the color too. It's clear where this came from.
Yes!
Seaman Stroganoff. You seem to have quite a large purple stain on the back of your white uniform there. Eh? Ah, yes, I don't know where the dirt comes from. So nothing in particular comes to mind about the stain? What are you trying to say? It would appear that the significance of the stain has escaped your attention, Seaman. Allow me to make it plain. It's a very large triple stain on the back of the Seaman Stroganoff's uniform. And I think what's made it is clear. Indeed it is. So, Mr. Naruhodo, present the evidence that proves it. My pleasure. Alright then, the evidence that proves that that stain on the back of Seaman Stroganoff's uniform really is. Okay, the ink thing is not one of these, so this is the closest I can get. Yes, it's this photograph, and the ink it shows. That's what caused the stain on your uniform. Ink? A rather unusual color of ink, purple. The penny drops, at last. Now you see the significance. The Russian word on the floor next to the victim's body was written in purple ink. And the stain on the back of your uniform is ink, of exactly the same color. It is the ink. If the ink had been dry, it couldn't possibly have stained your uniform in that way. Which means you must have been present in the cabin in the moment immediately after the ink was spilled. Alright, yes. It was me. I did it. Everything. I arranged everything in Dead Student's cabin to make it look like Wardrobe Man did it. When I pressed button to make Rorgo do emergency stop, the bolt cabin door shut. I did everything so no one would suspect our angel. Biff, please. Don't worry, Angel. Let me do talking. It was after 1 in the morning. I was on duty patrolling passageway. When our angel came to me, she was white like sheet. Biff, please, you must help me. I went with her. The door to cabin number 1 was open. When I looked inside, I saw a student boy on floor. What happened here? Please, don't tell anyone. My little one. My little furry friend. Everything that had happened in cabin is like Angel told you. The kitten escaped through the ventilator into Mr. Asogi's cabin. Then he tripped over it and broke his neck when he fell to the floor. Yes, that is right. So after the incident when the cat ran away, Miss Pavlova then visited the cabin next to hers. Only to find its occupant lying lifeless on the floor. She said she was worried when she had heard sound of something falling on floor. That's when she went to look. No, Angel? Door was not locked. So she opened the lock and you already know what happened after. There's just one thing, if you wouldn't mind. What? When you went to Mr. Asogi's cabin, Miss Pavlova, was he already dead? Why? I already told you. When Nina opened door of student's cabin and looked inside, I'm asking Miss Pavlova. Oh, Miss Pavlova. Yes? Oh. Yes, that is right. I saw him. It was dark, and he was wearing black, but he was on the floor, not moving. I was scared. I understand, and I believe you. So, is that finally it now? Have we discovered the real truth about Kazuma's death at last? We'll have to wait till the last trial. Ah, something very nearly slipped my mind. Oh, Mr. Sholmes? This photograph. Yes, I took this myself, you know. The cause of death was a broken neck. Therefore, the victim died instantly. An unfortunate incident that predicated these events, a kitten on which the victim stumbled. However, if those are the facts, there is one particular area in this photograph that seems to be somewhat unnatural. The finger. Well, that could have just been posed. What do you mean, unnatural? What are your thoughts on the matter, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, well... Kazuma tripped and fell, and by some terrible stroke of bad luck broke his neck. Which part of this photographic print seems unnatural? Well, I mean, it's the fist, but that's just because of the writing, right? I mean, it's the finger, but I mean, that's not particularly...
Yes.
This word in Russian clearly wasn't written by Kazuma, so if you're looking for something unnatural, that's the obvious point. Very true, it is certainly peculiar, but it's not what I meant by unnatural, I'm afraid. That particular crass detail was orchestrated by the culprit. I mean, to identify another point. Oh, I see. Imagine, if you will, losing your footing yourself. In my opinion, if you landed as the victim appears to have done here, it would have been most unnatural. I'm sure you have reached the same conclusion. How thoughtful you are, Mr. Sholmes. Thank you for your gentle guidance. If Kazuma tripped and fell, and by some terrible stroke of luck... The eyes...
Yes!
There's a skip. I have an auto, but I don't have a skip. Now let's try the fist.
Yes!
Alright, if you really fell due to an unfortunate accident, then this fist just doesn't seem quite right. The exact same thought occurred to me. If in a fall, one's instinct is to open the palms flat. Yet here we see the victim with his left hand tightly balled into a fist. Almost, you might say. As though he were gripping something. What do you mean? Simply that I took the liberty of investigating the victim's fist a short while ago. You did? And what, pray, do you imagine I found there, my dear fellow? Mr. Sholmes? Show us, please. Of course, my dear madame. Should I keep you in suspense? This is what I found. Oh, a crescent moon with a little gemstone in the middle. Wait, you ripped one of her earrings off? Ow! Yes, you're right, a crescent moon. It's very pretty, but what does it tell us? It tells us nothing. I'm not so sure. That crescent moon looks familiar somehow. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere before. Okay, what? Truth is now tantalizingly close. How did that crescent moon come to be in Kazuma's clenched fist? This is the final clue, the last piece of the puzzle. Ask yourself, what does this little crescent moon mean? What significance has it? And observe. Find the answer with your own eyes. She has such petite ears among that beautiful hair, like little pink shells. Oh, what's that? There's something attached to her ear. Ah, I expect that's what's called an earring. It's a little piece of jewelry. An earring, is it? It's really tiny. Perhaps part of it is missing. Maybe it broke off. So, now all that left is the clasp part that attaches to the ear. If that's the case, she doesn't appear to have noticed that it's broken.
Yes.
Miss Pavlova, I noticed that on your ear. Even though you have a metal earring, the decorative part of it seems to be missing. The little link holding it on must have broken, I suppose. What? But looking at your other ear, I noticed a crescent moon. Ah. I don't believe it. Now, the missing crescent moon was found in the victim's clenched fist. Clearly there is only one logical conclusion. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes. Miss Pavlova, Mr. Asogi must have grasped that crescent moon and pulled it from your ear. Perhaps just moments before he fell to the floor. In other words, last night, that's a really weird move. In Mr. Asogi's cabin, you witnessed the moment when the victim fell with your own eyes. In fact, you were quite literally at arm's length from him. The question is, why did Mr. Asogi do that? Why did he pull your earring from your ear and hold it in his clenched fist during his final moments? Oh no. Angel? No one can protect you now. Please, Miss Pavlova, tell us the truth. Last night, what did you do to Kazuma? I think about everything that happened yesterday. It was too much. Running away, the fishing boat in the middle of the night, trying to climb onto this huge ship, and then... check something. And I was at last in this cabin and I could relax after this horrible long day. Darka, wait. I couldn't believe it when she disappeared through the ventilator. I tried to call her with a little whistle. I tried waving her favorite toy. But nothing worked. Darka would not come back. What are you doing here at this time of night, Inspector? I'm sorry. I thought it was a friend of mine. Young man from your country. He was very polite and kind. He helped me to find Darka, and he promised not to tell anyone. But then, when I had my friend in my arms again, I was going to leave the man's cabin. Just a moment. Sorry, but... Yes? I'm sure I know your face. I've seen you somewhere before. Ah. Of course, you're Nikolina Pavlova, aren't you? The Russian ballerina. Huh? No, I don't know that name. My heart nearly stopped when he said that. I knew he knew who I was. How could this man from a land in the faraway east know a Russian ballerina? Yes, I saw you perform your performance in Japan. The beauty of the ballet made a deep impression on me. But what are you doing on the ship? I'm sure I read that your ballet company was performing in Shanghai at the moment. I can't fool him. I have to tell him the truth and hope he doesn't tell anyone. I have no other choice. I see. So you've run away. Please, please keep my secret. Don't tell anyone. Give me a moment. I could use another opinion here. He's going to pull that cord. He's going to tell the captain. Why did I think I could trust him? Then it happened. Everything at once. It was only a second, but it felt like forever. Wait, I shouted, and then... Darka jumped out of my arms and down to the young man's feet. And as he turned around to look at me, I pushed him. I don't even know why. I don't know why I did it. I was just so scared. And I had to stop him from telling anyone about me. That's when you went to fetch help from Seaman Stroganoff, who was on duty out in the passageway. I heard Nina cry out, and I thud on floor. I ran to her. She was standing at cable door, shaking like leaf. She looked at me and said, "Help me, Biff. If they find out, I will be... Please, I have nowhere to go." So you decide to help. And that's when you arrange things in Kazuma's cabin to make it look like I did it. So that no one would suspect the passenger in the cabin next door. Yes. I went into cabin and looked around to make sure there was nothing to show Nina was there. And then I found Stowaway, in wardrobe, still sleeping. Right, that's when he found me. So you worked out a plan to lay the blame on the Stowaway. I closed wardrobe doors and put back strange paper sign. Luckily for me, that's the only reason Sasoda-san started to believe me when I said I was innocent. I dragged young man's body to a good place and used ink that was spilling to write on floor. I wrote wardrobe so that person who found him would look inside wardrobe and find Stowaway. Tell me, what of the glass bell? It was by my feet, so I picked it up. I see. But it was dark in the cabin, and I did not notice the other half. Then Angel went back to her cabin, and I finished job. By pressing the emergency alarm button in the passageway. I accidentally carried the accent over. Yes. Accordingly, the SS Bureau did indeed come to an emergency halt at a little after 2 a.m., thus enticing the bolt on the cabin door to slide shut, creating the blocked room mystery. Still one thing I don't understand, Miss Pavlova. Well, you said that you told Kazuma about the fact that you'd run away from your homeland. That's because you were worried he was going to tell the captain that you pushed him. Isn't that right? Yes. But even if he had pulled the bell cord and called for the captain of the ship, aren't you friends with every member of the crew? Why would that have been a problem? It was what he said first that made me scared. What he said first? What are you doing here at this time of night, Inspector? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was a friend of mine. He said Inspector was his friend. Yes, meaning me, who was supposed to be acting as his bodyguard. I thought that if police knew about me, they would arrest me. So before he could pull the bell cord, I... Hey, stop you a moment, please, Miss Pavlova. It just doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, was Mr. Asogi really going to pull the bell cord? I don't know. What? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I'm not Kazuma, so I can't know for certain, but... he was a man of his word. If he told you he wouldn't give your secret away, then he wouldn't have done. No, he was walking over to it. He was going to pull the cord. He was going to make them send me back. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, the day's work is not yet done, it seems. There was one more deduction to make. There is one more deduction to make. What? Another deduction? Yes, what action was the victim really about to take at the moment? Well, he's about to open the wardrobe, of course. Can we determine whither the young man's gaze was directed? This is not really an induction, this is an induction. First, consider the victim's location within his cabin. That's easy, I remember every detail of that room. I mean, yes, I spent quite a lot of time in the wardrobe, but still. That cabin has been my home for this entire voyage. So this is how the cabin looked last night, when Miss Pavlova visited Kazuma-san. Yes, it's exactly how it was. Are you ready then, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes. There's one thing I've learned today. It's that a simple gaze can reveal a manner of truths. And not only that, in order to draw the right conclusions, you can't afford to be out by even a little bit when you're following the gaze of where it lands. So, when he turned away from Miss Pavlova, what exactly was Kazuma looking at?
Take that!
There's probably some dialogue you can get if you press on that, but I didn't bother. Considering everything that had happened last night, certainly it may have looked as though Kazuma was going to ring the bell cord. Yes, however, what is directly beside the bell cord? The wardrobe. The wardrobe. And more importantly, what was inside the wardrobe? The man's great friend, sleeping soundly. Miss Pavlova, please think back very carefully. What were Mrs. Asogi's exact words last night? Give me a moment, I could use another opinion here. Another opinion. Yes, but not from a member of the crew. No, Mr. Asogi intended to consult his close friend on the matter. To see if between them they might be able to help in some way, no doubt. Oh no. Sadly, we can't know the truth for certain now. It's too late for that. But I wish you had made sure of what Mr. Asogi was looking at. Things may have ended very differently if you had. Miss Pavlova, I want to thank you for finally admitting the truth. But unfortunately, the truth is, a man lost his life because of what you did. And that will never change. I hope you'll never forget that. I'm sorry. Really. I'm so sorry. What have I done? So, at long last, the mystery surrounding the tragic accident on the SS Buria was finally laid to rest. What will happen to Miss Pavlova now, then? Once you reach Great Britain, she'll be handed over to the British police at Scotland Yard. What about the fact that she ran away from Russia? Won't the Russians try to repatriate her? Apparently, the English detective can speak to the immigration office and sort all that out. Mr. Sholmes can do that? So she won't be going back to Russia then? No, I don't think so. Even if she wanted to return in the future, I doubt she would be able to. She ran away, so now she's in exile for life. I see. I'm sorry. Seaman Stroganoff. I wanted to help our angel no matter what, but I didn't think about you, about how you lost good friend. I will go with Nina. I will give myself to British police. That's kind of you. In the meantime, thank you for letting me go free again. Kazuma's death feels like such a waste, but... well, do what you can for Miss Pavlova, won't you? Ah. Well, I'm afraid you need to pack now. We're due to arrive in Hong Kong tomorrow. As much as it pains me, I'm going to have to hand you over to the consul to arrange your passage back to Japan. Yes, I did stow away after all. I couldn't really expect any different. So, you should get back to your cabin now. Looks like my study tour to Great Britain is over before it even begun then. To think that, only days ago, Kazuma and I were laughing together about how we'd tear up the streets of London. That seemed like a distant memory now. Oh, what's that? Is it someone weeping? Susato-san. Haruhodo-san, I didn't know you had returned. Oh, well, I haven't been back long. Inspector Hosonaga just told me I should pack, you know. Ready to leave the ship tomorrow and all that. I still can't believe this has happened. I can't believe someone's life can be over just like that. Susato-san. He had such grand ideas for his visit to Great Britain, so many dreams. And now they've been cruelly taken away, just as he has. I thought I could never forgive the person responsible. But now we know the truth, that it was just an accident. Just a silly series of mishaps. It's too much, Naruhodo-san, it's just too much. Yes, I know. I wish there was something I could say. Inspector, my duty was to see Asogi-san safely to Great Britain, but I failed, and caused his two closest friends great pain and suffering as a result. I've let everyone down. Hey, how are you supposed to protect him from that, though? It's not something you would expect to have to protect him from, and I will do anything to make up for my terrible blunder. Nobody blames you, Inspector. And I'm free again now at... Stinger. Surprise, Mr. Naruhodo. What is the meaning of this? Oh, a trifling matter. Simply that in my head, I think I shall always picture you wearing those shackles. Without them, the balance seems all wrong. It's distracting. Sorry. So I decided to restore them, for old time's sake, shall we say. You are a stowaway, after all. He thinks this is funny. Mr. Sholmes. We do appreciate all your assistance. I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. But how'd you get on the ship and what are you doing here? Not at all, not at all. And though it's a little late, may I offer my sincere condolences. The loss of your companion is truly heartrending. I hope that you will be able to fulfill some of his aspirations in his honor. I'm afraid that won't be possible. We shall be disembarking at the next port in Hong Kong. We have to return to Japan and make a full report about everything that happened. What? Wait a minute. It's just me that has to go back, isn't it? I mean, I was the stowaway. Terms of the study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. It was to be one lawyer and one assistant. Was to be? In the light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. Oh no, I don't care for me, but poor Susato-san. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know? All you require is one lawyer and one study tour to continue, surely? But there is no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Schultz. We know of no other lawyer. Qualifications, you say? And qualifications obtained in your own country will be of little value in Great Britain, I'm afraid. Oh, but anyway, the voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. Yes? Miss Sasato? Yes? Do you think perhaps I might be able to do it? But you're not a lawyer, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, unless... Are you studying law? No, I'm not, but I am a lawyer. Technically. I'm sorry. In that case, I don't think there's even a chance it could work. But as I said, there is still more than a month before you reach England shores. Isn't that right, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, I have a month in which to study, to learn what I must to become a lawyer in Great Britain. Mr. Naruhodo, that's ridiculous. You have been bottlenecked into this plot. That's ridiculous. Are you seriously suggesting anybody could learn all of that in just 40 days? There's only one way to find out. He doesn't, because he's like the Phoenix Wright replacement, so he's gonna bumble his way through. I would work my fingers to the bone, Inspector, every single day. Will you let me try? That doesn't require finger skin. And if by the time we reach Great Britain I haven't learned enough to be recognized as a lawyer, I'll take whatever punishment is deemed appropriate. But why would you put yourself in such a difficult position? For Kazuma. He said that there was something he had to do in Great Britain, that he would sacrifice anything to make it happen. He was passionate about it. I can't tell all that passion just come to nothing. Can't let. And anyway, it's for my own benefit too. I will become a lawyer. I have to. What do you say, Miss Susato? I think it's a wonderful idea. So, what does our bespectacled inspector friend say? How did his glasses get fixed? Are you serious? One lawyer and one assistant. The numbers are indisputable. Oh no, it's madness. Yet fascinating, wouldn't you agree? Fascinating. Like a game, duty and the rules of the dual routine of existence that we all abhor. Give us interest, give us fascination. Speak for yourself. Besides, qualifications are no measure of a man. What matters is his character. No? And you've witnessed ample evidence of this man's exemplary character today with your own eyes. From the early hours of this morning until this very moment now. Despite contending with the passing of his close companion and despite the accusation of guilt, this man has shown resourcefulness, intelligence, and above all, courage. Very well. I'll think of a clever way to word my report to the Department of Justice. Inspector, after all, I did just make a promise, didn't I? I said that I'd do anything at all to make up for my shortcomings here. Oh, thank you, Inspector. If you'll excuse me, I must pay a visit to the captain's quarters, I think. I need to discuss what to do next and how best to make my report. You're really prepared to attempt this, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, I'm going to try. I wonder, would you consider teaching me what I need to know? Everything about being a lawyer? I would be delighted to help you. I am a judicial assistant, after all. Thank you. And, Mr. Naruhodo, should I throw me? I'd like you to take charge of this. What, me? Are you sure? I'm sure it is what Kazuma-sama would have wanted. Its name is Karuma. It's a great sword that's been in the Asogi clan for generations. Very well, I accept it. I'll treasure it always. So then, Miss Susato, it seems we'll be working together for some time to come yet. It will be an honor, Mr. Naruhodo. For the next 40 days, I shan't grant you a single minute of freedom. We shall fill every spare moment with study. Yes, that's exactly what I need. But, before we begin, I have an earnest favor to ask of you too. Goodness, what is it? Please throw me to the ground. 3 times. What? I should never have doubted you. You are Kazuma-sama's closest friend. Of course you would never have done anything to hurt him. That should have been obvious to me from the start. But I allowed suspicion to get the better of me. And no matter how upset I was feeling, it was completely unforgivable behavior. No, you were in shock. You just found out about me stowing away, and the cabin door was locked from the inside. No, I won't let you make excuses for me. Whatever circumstances, I should never have thrown you, and not just once, but 5 times. That number keeps creeping up, doesn't it? Please, you must. Take hold of me and throw me, do it. Don't even think about it. No, I don't even know how. I've never thrown anybody in my life. Very wise, Mr. Naruhodo. It isn't a skill one acquires without considerable training. Oh, Mr. Sholmes? Uh-oh. I observed your throwing technique several times with great interest. I confess I was most impressed. Where did he see that? I presume that would be a form of Japanese wrestling. Oh, well, in a way. It's not wrestling, but my own interpretation of an ancient jujitsu technique. Apparently it's called the Susatu Takedown. It leaves your head swimming, believe me. How beguiling. I'm a practitioner of the combative arts myself. I'm somewhat accomplished boxer. There he goes, dancing around again. I wonder if you'd be kind as to instruct me on the technique of your arresting throw. Yes, I'd be honored. It's checked. Then let us not dally. Demonstrate, my dear madame. Oh, of course. And here we go. Are you ready, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry. As you can see, you throw from the abdomen. Ah yes, interesting indeed. And that is what you learn. That is what the term Susato takedown is it? What you term the Susato takedown, is it? Actually, no. That is a Susato squash. In my groggy state of consciousness, a scene from an evening recently spent with Kazuma flickered into my mind. Oh, more. I guess it keeps going. That's right. It's a prized sword that has been passed down through generations of the Sogi clan. I can't believe you managed to get permission to bring it with you. I mean, taking a katana on a study tour is more than a little irregular, surely? Japanese man's sword is the soul, Ryanosuke. I can't be parted with my katana. Karuma guides me, I truly believe that. So its name compels its wielder to slice evil in two, not that you would need much compelling. On that subject, there's something very important that I have to do in Great Britain, and I'll sacrifice anything to make it happen. I'd appreciate you seeing it through with me. Of course I will. Whatever it is, I'll see it through to the end with you. I knew you wouldn't let me down. That important thing you had to do? I still know what it was. That might be case 5, but I'm going to see the place for myself and work it out. In Great Britain's capital, London. Okay, so that one ended out kind of lame. It just was just Pavlova did it by accident. That was not a very interesting outcome. Okay, so there was no trials in that. That was like a Miles Edgeworth style case. Decided to mix it up. Adventure of the Runaway Room. Adventure of the Clouded Kokoro. Okay. So it's 5. We got done with 2 of them. I'm hoping the remaining 3 have trials in them. Yes. Second one. Huh. There's a Clouded Kotoro. Okay. So there's going to be 10 in total. Well, I guess that's it. It's kind of a tragic end, and it'll be an end.